This time on Captain Chaos's laboratory, we're gonna see if we can make this thing light up. I'm sure you've seen it. It's New Year, new Lemax products. It's the Haunted Souls Graveyard, which is a non-lit piece with the mausoleum, a big casket, coffin, and then a whole bunch of headstones and a tree. Mine came with a window that fell off. Not a big deal. But if you light it up and use a power cord, you're going to be stuck with a cord, and you won't be able to move your pieces around. The whole point of this is to make it modular, so you can put your stuff wherever you really want. Doesn't matter. That was the idea behind this. But I was thinking, I tore apart the air bright, and it's slightly bigger than this. But I think I have an idea. I think I have an idea that makes this air bright work better for a light in here than making this light up. If I remember right, the Village Idiots from Spooky Villages mentioned this in their preview before Lemax came out with this, that I should try and make this thing light up. And I had some ideas when I saw it in the store as a display. And then I finally got around to buying it, and well, here it is. I was hoping that this would be a little bit smaller so this fit perfectly, but it isn't. It's bigger. Doesn't mean much. I mean, I could technically, because even if I just straddle 50%, so that circle, that oval, I still get the light. Now granted, it does get dimmer over here and brighter over here, but this can be cut. So you could use the main power one and cut it. You'd have to strip your air bright in half, or try and cut right down the center. I mean, you need to right there. And then you could literally just stick this over the white box, or if you have something you put next to this to cover the white box, because if you saw my other videos, this is encased in a large piece of white plastic. So, but I have some ideas on how to actually use the air bright system to make this light up. And I have some ideas. Now, the only problem is these are all white, and white lights are great and all, but even if I mounted them here, they're obvious. So might have to figure out also how to change these to a different color, whether you're painting them or if you're changing the LEDs. I mentioned that on the last video I did with the air bright, of possibly figuring out a way to pop these open and changing out these LEDs. So that might lead into this. But let's get that out of the way because it's bright as hell. So first thing, this needs to light up. And when I was looking at it, the windows are relatively clear. This one had popped off when I took it out of the box, but you can't see through it. So I decided to scratch the back, and now you can see through it. See, right there. So first things first, I have to pop all these windows out. So there's a total of 6. And scrape all the paint off. So that's going to be the first process in here. Second process is, this is a resin cast and it's hollow. You can kind of see there's a big hole. Second is the insert. So if you look at this glass, fake glass, but I'm just going to call it glass, it sits on this raised piece. So the second piece would be to cut out the recessed piece. Here, 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 here. And I'm sure, I can't tell because I haven't popped it out, the doors are the same. And then, oh, just so you know, what I did is just to see if I didn't scratch the paint off, will the light shine through? And it barely shines through. I mean, it does shine through, but it's so you could have that stained or smoke glass effect. You can also do it by painting the back of this with something that's translucent, like nail polish. So there's options if you want to make this colored, or you can just put colored light inside. And I know these don't come colored, they're just white, but we might see a way of solving that. So So yeah, and then if you really wanted to be even better, you could take a micro drill bit and drill out the eyes and the skulls. You can even go even further and go into those skulls. I have a funny feeling this is completely hollow on the inside. I'm pretty sure these walls, 1/4 inch thick, because there's no flex, there's no give. There's a little on the bottom, but I don't think these walls are much thicker than this. So, won't know until I start cutting it, but I am going to start cutting this. So, that's an option to do this, to make this light up. Because if you have any of the Lemax mausoleums, they'll light up. And then the ones that have doors, I've even sliced the seam of the door and then glued the door on an angle so it's open and you can just barely see inside, a little bit of light. One of them I have it where it's cracked open and I glued a skeleton inside standing there, so if you look at it just right, you can see the skeleton. So, much easier with the bottom removed, or mostly removed. So I was thinking pretty much where it says Lemax 2024, just cutting out that square. Stuff like this I won't make internally light up. It's probably hollow. It's hard to tell. I'm sure it is. But honestly, these chitin displays in cemeteries, mortuaries, so on and so forth, do not have lights. They might have illumination from the ground, like a flag light, or what you put around your trees at night, your bushes, so on and so forth, yard lighting. But these generally aren't lit. And I've been to lots and lots of cemeteries, and I've never seen headstones lit independently. They might have floodlights, pole lights going throughout the graveyard or cemetery, but that's it. Most of them don't have any lighting whatsoever. So any lighting is better than no lighting. And of course, it comes with a tree, and trees don't light up naturally. So I was thinking, let's make this light up, and since this is the front, and it comes with the gate pre-cracked open, mounting the lights on the inside of the columns just to illuminate, which means that if you have, let's say you have these in the back because they're large, and these in the front, you would get a shadow cast off of the headstones. I don't know how it's going to look. I don't know if it's going to be neat, horrible, halfway in between. Personal preference, doesn't matter. It's whatever you like and not what other people like. So that's what I'm thinking. And I'm also wondering if possibly these are hollow. Because if they're hollow, you could technically have the light sticking out and drilled down inside, but that's a lot of work. But at the same time, you could take do I have one lying around? Give me a second. Don't, but I'll do some looking. I have a lot of spare pieces from broken parts. If you watch a lot of my videos, I buy and acquire broken houses just for the parts. On the Rest in Peace Mausoleum, there's a lot of gargoyles around the outside edges. I keep those when I throw the porcelain house away. I break off all the accessories, or I heat them and snap them off. Because sometimes somebody ships me one, it gets broken delivery, or I've helped people that buy used pieces or missing parts. But anyway, the point of this is there's gargoyles on that, on all the corners. I think there's a total of 6. You could glue the gargoyles, especially on these tall ones, give it a little flair. And if these are hollow, Lemax has little flame lights, like they're skeletons holding them up. They also have shorter ones. They don't make them anymore, so you have to find them on eBay or something, that you could stick on here and run the wires down and have the flame lights on the columns. Or even their witch lights or their bat lights, where it's a globe with a witch's hat or it's got bats on it, and you could take the pole off and attach them to give this a little bit more oomph. And you could even get from their non-Halloween line the lantern lights, which I swore I had some sitting here. But the lantern lights basically just, you can make them light up or not, just to give it your own tweak. So, but we're going to start with this, and to save you on the time and hassle of watching me pop out windows and scrape them for hours, I'm just going to pause. There's a couple ways to do it, so I'll show you how I started. First things first, let's make some space here. That. These mats make a heck of a mess. So how I tested it was I just took a razor knife and that's how I started. What I'm planning on doing is I was going to get a little bit of nail polish remover, acetone, and see if that will take the paint off. You could use sandpaper, but sandpaper is going to frost the windows, meaning they're going to be not clear, they're going to be frosty, which may be a benefit. It'll give you that stained glass look without actually stained glass. So there's a few different ways of doing it. I'm going to get some acetone, see if that breaks any of this down. If not, I'm probably going to sand them off because I think the stained glass will be nicer. A couple of reasons, and here's my reasoning. The stained glass look means you're not going to see the light inside. So the clear, which you can see through, kind of, I already disconnected it. Let's get this out of the way too, so I don't lose it. The clear, you might be able to see the orange, kind of. You'll be able to see the LED inside. But if you sand it, the frosty will act as a diffuser. So I'm probably just going to sand it. You can just sit here and use a piece of sandpaper. So this is God knows what grit because it's cut right through it. It could, it might actually be 60 grit. So when I hold it up to the light, there's no way to do this without blinding the camera. That's the problem. Yeah, see, the camera just is horrible. You can kind of see it diffuses the white light. So actually I like the sandpaper look. Acetone will probably still work. You can do this by hand, which probably could be the most recommended way of doing this. But I was thinking about using a small power sander just to speed up the process, because this is going to be a very, very long process. Now you can try any way you want. You can play with it, see what works best for you. I would start with a window that won't be as visible, so probably one in the back. So still, it's semi-transparent, but now you can see there's no more paint on it. Oh, there's a little bit right there. So if you have a hobby sander, it might work. This is a hobby sander. So it's got a sanding belt. It's itty bitty, as you can tell. It is variable speed, which is right here on the power supply. You just like that. And if you're interested in finding something like this, I got this on Temu. You can get them locally, but they're a lot more expensive. And this comes with the polishing wheel that goes right here. So you could technically put polishing compound on here and make this clear again if you're going to use a sander. Again, it's up to you. I try and do things my way. So you can see. This is a finer sandpaper. It almost made the window clear again. You can see where I was touching. You can see it's not as coarse as this, because I was just working on where the paint was still stuck, where the window's not perfectly flat. It's got some indentations. And it still doesn't look bad looking into a white light, which I have right there and right there. Oh, I wonder if these will pop off. Like I said, that one fell off and the packaging was completely off when I opened the little box. This one's not centered. Yeah, this one up against the edge. There we go. So now this is also reversible, so depending on which way the belt either goes that way or that way, I had it going this way just so I can hold it here. Probably not the quietest thing on the camera. If you have headphones, it's probably really loud. But that's way faster than sandpaper that way. You just be careful you don't catch your fingers. I don't have it on very fast, and because the plate's here, my finger doesn't fit underneath it. It's not the proper way to use the sander, but it's a hobby sander. It's not really big. If I was using a big belt sander like I have, I wouldn't be doing it like that. It would also probably rip this right out of my hands, and then I would probably be upset because I throw it across the area and probably wouldn't find it. Or with my luck, it'd go underneath, get stuck, and then just dissolve the plastic down into nothingness. So, kind of like that one just did. That one's gone. And these are already clear, so there's no sanding required. Now I just got to find the one that flew when it popped. Wasn't even sanding and it flew away on me. And of course it's clear, so it just blends right in. But no idea where it went. Alright, well, look for it in a little bit. Let's sand these down real quick. I'm not going to do the acetone. This works way better and it gives me a little bit of frosting. So let's get these fixed. don't have something like this, you can use sandpaper. Harbor Freight does sell these if you have a Harbor Freight near you. If you don't trust Temu, I have mentioned a few times I buy from Temu a lot. Because even though it's cheap Chinese stuff, Lemax is technically cheap Chinese stuff. That's why it breaks. And if you haven't seen this before, it's a Desvac. American Science and Surplus sells them. They're like $8, and they're really good about sucking up sawdust and stuff from your work area. It's probably the best $8 I've ever spent. And it's USB rechargeable. So let's get this thing out of the way. I know I said I was going to pause the video, but I might do it when I cut these out because it's probably going to be noisy. But the first thing I want to do is let's find out how thick this really is. So that drill bit's wide enough to fit between where I want. I don't know if you can tell from the hole, but what is that? It's a little over a 1/4 inch. Like I said, it's probably a good 1/4 inch thick. It's a little over based on how far up the drill went before it punctured. What I'm going to do is just drill some holes, and then I'm going to go get my Dremel and use a cutoff wheel and cut it out, and then maybe use a tapered sanding disc to smooth it out a little bit on the inside. But I'm pretty much committed. So we'll drill another one up here. That's a lot thinner up there. So that's not evenly cast. That's pretty standard for plastics. Usually plastics are thicker at the bottom. Stop walking. So I don't know if you can tell, if it puts more light on it. It's still hard to see. Yeah, that kind of helps. If you look, you can kind of see the white ring that's really thin there and really thick there. It's because there's a thin spot here. This one's thicker than there. These two are really thick. So in their casting, at least on mine, yours can vary. Nothing's the same. It varies. Cutoff wheel, make straight cuts, connect the two, and then use a fine grinding bit and cut out the peaks of the windows if you want them cut out. You could, if you didn't have that, you could use a drill bit if it's sharp. And start cutting down. It's harder to control. Like I went right onto the edge of the lip, so you can do that. There's also something inside. I think it's just the casting material. Oh wow, there's a lot of casting material in here. The drill bit hit something and I kicked it. There's a big chunk of resin in here. So You can do it carefully with a drill, and you can use it as a circular saw or rotozip. If you have a rotozip, it'll work too, but because they're so fast and not as controllable, I'd recommend a Dremel. Dremels are way easier. It doesn't have to be a Dremel brand Dremel. It can be a knockoff rotary tool. I have a Dremel from Dremel. The filter on this is a medium filter, so the fine dust just went everywhere. But beautiful. So when I come back to the camera, this will be all cut out, just for giggles. Let's see how thick the doors are. Well, that one's actually pretty thick. That one didn't seem as thick. Yeah, that door is really thick. This door's thin. So I think the casting is going to vary. They don't care about the inside. They only care about the outside appearance. So yeah. And I can see just where I drilled, right above it is a big chunk of casting again on the inside. As far as the bottom goes, I'm probably just going to use the cutoff wheel, like I said, and I'm going to cut out this square. 1, I'll see what's inside. 2, I can put the light in. Technically, that will fit an LED. Here's an LED. Alright, it's one size too small. It's a tight fit. So this is a 5mm LED. It doesn't quite fit, but a 3mm will fit right side that hole. So you could use a 5mm drill bit, which is what this is, and it's just under. These aren't metric, but it's like 4.5 on the drill bit conversion. And then you can put your LED through. Now, that'll give you a high spot, which is why I want to try and do the air bright system for this. I got the air bright system. I've torn it all apart. I might as well use it for something, because if I don't, it was just a waste. I did buy it to I didn't buy it, sorry. I did get it to tear apart, but I won it in a contest, and they didn't give it to me. But I'm thinking the air bright will be fine. Also, I know there's been reviews on this from other channels. This is really thin, flexible plastic. So you could also put the air bright, if you wanted to, you could tear up this mat, put the air bright in, and then recoat it. If you watch people like Halloween Village by Carl, he shows you how to do the flocking. So you could reflock it. I do notice, and I'm sure you can see on camera, there's a big square right here, a rectangle. I don't know what that is, but you can feel it with your fingers. And the bottom is absolutely smooth. There's no indentations or anything. So I'm not quite sure why this is like this. And it just may have been from packaging, because there's a little box that fits here. But it's really raised. So I'm going to assume packaging. But there we go. So let's see what we can do to make this better. Like I said, I already got the gargoyles here. I'm thinking something on these taller pillars would be cool. And you got 4 pillars. If you want to do all of them, go for it. But let's see how we can make this better. I'm not a decorating channel. I'm not a, I don't build vignettes or anything. I developed my second one actually, by watching people. I do more repairs. When it comes to repairs, I can do those. When it comes to making things pretty, I can do that too. But when it comes to building like really nice vignettes and displays, yeah, I need a little help. But I'm very critical of my stuff, so I don't, it may not look good to me, but it looks great to other people. And I was also mentioned on Spooky Villages that this will look good with some weathering. I ain't the greatest with that, but I do think some weathering, because you got the dark texture in the brick, but these are all nice and clean. This is clean. These are porous, but they're clean. So they're porous to imitate the stone, but there's no moss or discoloration like stone gets naturally from weather. So maybe we can make this look spookier and light up. So, anyhow, I'm going to go get a Dremel. So I'm going to pause it right here. And let's get all these windows cut out. And I'm going to cut the bottom off and see what we can do. Because that casting that's in here, if it interferes with the window lights, we're going to have to trim the casting too, that I can see through the holes. So it's very important to get this bottom removed. But that's where we're at. And I shall return with, and I'll hopefully find that missing window that went flying on me. But let's see if we can make this better than it was from Lemax. Be back in a few. Okay. So those are cardinate trimmed, but let me show you what's inside. All that's the casting, and you can see it's in the way of those windows. So I'm going to have to figure out how to get through that casting all the way down in there to, man, this light just blinds the camera. There we go. So if you were going to drill out the eyes, that casting right there would obstruct it, something severe. And then real quick, this is the cutoff wheel. And that, almost perfect, kind of looks like a little headstone. So I might turn it into another headstone. And I did find the missing window. So I just want to show you where we're at. This side needs to be trimmed up and cleaned. This side's cut, but I'm getting into a problem with that casting down there. And then I'll do the doors. Well, the doors will be fine. You can see the holes. So, but anyway, just want to give you a quick update. It is really dusty, so careful with your eyes and your breathing. All right, shall return. Okay, I've cut out all the windows. I'll show it to you, but give you an idea. So, dim the flashlight down a little so you can kind of see the glass glows. They're not glued in. I just popped them back into their frames. So, I'll show you what I did. So where I had the big blob right in there, I didn't cut it out. I just ground it at an angle so when the light shines up it'll reflect out. There we go. There we go. So I used a micro grinder, or a rotary micro. It comes from this kit, but you can get cheap ones on Temu or even at Harbor Freight. I used that to get the rough and this to make the cuts. And then of course the Dremel variable speed. Some are just low high. This one is got numbers on it. So you set the speed based on the number. So it's about 1/3 of max speed. Too slow, it bounces. Too high, it grabs and gets hot. So, but before I glue the windows in and do the next part, I'm going to try and do some dry brush technique on this and make it look weathered. So it'll probably be a day before I come back, but I'm going to see what I can do. I still thought about trying to drill out the eyes because I do have some really fine micro bits in here. Like, you can see how small some of these are. They're like thick, just as thick as a human hair on this one. So I could technically drill these eyes out, but the thickness of the casting is not worth it to me. And you probably won't even notice it unless you're like really staring at it. So, but this is how we're going to make this light up. So you can see the bottom's cut out. You can put one of those puck lights or the double lights in here, make this glow. Just need to change the color, and that way this part's going to be done. So I'm going to do some dry brushing before I glue the windows in so I don't paint the windows, so I really don't want to. And then I'll glue the windows in and we'll come back and we'll continue with lighting it and working on the platform, seeing if we put some lights in the columns to illuminate across. Worst case is at least this will be lit. And then you have the option, if you wanted to, you could drill a hole right here and put in a power port and run a standard 4.5 volt barrel jack, or if you have some of the older stuff, or even Department 56, you could run the 2.5 or the 3.5 millimeter headphone style jack, and you can buy those and actually insert them, drill a hole, and with a hole in the bottom you can attach them properly. But then you're going to have a cord to deal with. My point is to not have the cord so I can make it modular like it's supposed to be. So this is where that air brake will come into play. Probably make it slightly easier. So here is the 6 windows all cut out. The rough cuts, you can make them finer, but once you put the glass in, you don't see the rough cuts. So, and that'll give it a little personality with the way the light hits the window. If it's supposed to be an older looking cemetery, then it's not going to be perfect. I will tell you that I did hit one of the reapers on the front here, or the skeletons or robes, so there's a little white, so the weathering is going to help a lot. Basically this part of the hit. What's nice about these micro bits is they have these collars on them, as you see in the picture here, and that allows me to set depth, or it also prevents me from gouging up the plastic, where when you use something like this, they walk. And this is just a carbide teardrop shape cutter, which works really good, but it does have a tendency to walk around. So that's where we're at. I just want to give you an update. It's taken me, I don't know, 15-20 minutes to cut this out and clean up, because it looked like a winter wonderland in here. There was so much white dust from the white resin everywhere. It was ridiculous. I'm still covered in it a little bit, and my black shirt is now white. So you can even see it on here. Yeah, messy. You can use an evacuation fan. I just let it go where it needs to go, and then just vacuumed. So, but it's a laboratory. They get messy, you clean them up. Anyhow, if you are going to do this, probably recommend doing it outside. I'm not going outside because currently 114, and yeah, I don't want to die. That's too hot. So anyhow, I'll be back after I weather this and glue the glass in, and we'll go to the next step of this. Probably going to be a very long video on how to modify and make that platform have some lights. And again, this is just a suggestion. You don't have to do what's yours. You can choose a different way of doing it. It's just something I'm going to do because I have all this stuff flying around and I might as well use some of it. So I shall return. All right, here is, that's now lit up. It might be hard to see, but this is what it might look like with the columns having lights. It's not done. This was just a test. I put all the little tombstones out. It's hard to see from above because you just see the shadows, which was part of the reason why I wanted to illuminate the column towards the back. I'll get some video when we're done of it all the way around. But this gives you an idea what I'm looking at or looking for using the air bright. You don't have to cut yours up like I did. You can use it with the white mat underneath your display. But with these columns, there's 2 short ones, the lights aren't flush because I'm going to integrate them into the column. I'm going to show that process. You can see that does illuminate in. From this way I can see all the headstones. I don't care for the white lights. I'm going to change them. Just like this, I don't care for the white lights, but these are lit up. You can see the windows. If I tip it, you can see those windows. So again, they're white, and spooky stuff isn't generally white. Purples, greens, lights are coming on. Purples, greens, oranges, so on and so forth. So what I did was I dissected these little disc lights. So this is what's inside. It is a wafer that's glued in. You will have to heat this to break the glue down. Here's the, you can see the, kind of see the glue. Yeah, you can see it better now that there's stuff stuck to it. But there you go. You can see lights on, lights off. It's hard to tell in the viewfinder. It doesn't look like the light's on, so let's do this. Lights on, lights off. So I was looking at how we can integrate this puck into this column. Because the problem I'm going to have is, and this one lights back on, even on the column, is this puck is bigger than the column. You do need to keep it as a puck, or a disc, or whatever you want to call it, circle, because it might be hard to see. I'm trying to find a way the light will show it. Let's see if I kill one light, will that help? Not really. There's a spiral of wire to pick up the electricity that is right up to the edge. And that's the problem. So these aren't really trimmable. Plus you have some discrete components right on the edge. So you really can't trim it. But if you look at this, and I marked this, black marks me with a Sharpie. It's got 2 solder pads right there. This is the Sharpie's negative. That's why I marked it real quick. This gets 2.6 volts of power. So, and then the big one, which is this guy, which, yeah, I'll turn off a light. I'll turn off 2 lights. See, I can't tell with the viewfinder how good it is. There you go. This one has a kind of a foam face. It's not a hard plastic disc like this, where it doesn't flex. So I just peeled this off. I didn't heat it or nothing. I just got the edge and just like so. You can see the discrete components on this one. There's more of them. I also marked the 2 black dots that you see next to the lights are the negatives. So this doesn't have the solder pads because they're soldered underneath the edges of these LEDs. You use a shadow so you can see. So, but there we go. Something like this could be put in there to make it even brighter. But I was testing using, and I'll use the single light just because it'll be slightly easier. Just to show you what I'm going to do. Lights off. Now the reason this is flickering is this is a flicker light. So this is flickering, causing the white light to flicker under my thumb. But as you can see, by putting the lights on that pad, they come on. So you can change the color, but unless you get a flush mount LED, which is what that is, put it in the shadow again because apparently this camera just likes to swamp out. You would have to, you can get flush mount LEDs. I have them. I don't have them in the colors I'm looking for. Plus flush mount LEDs in colors, I don't know if they're going to be as bright as this. So I was doing some testing with some different colored LEDs and different size LEDs. Like these are square. These are 5mm rounds. I got orange flicker and yellow flicker because I was thinking about putting those lantern heads on here, or maybe on here, like I was talking about, and using pads like this that can do 2 LEDs and maybe running the wires under this. This is soft, so you might be able to run some thin wires. You don't want to cut this because the coil has to be a complete circuit or else it won't pick up the flux lines from here. But using the meter, and I'll show you just so you all know, we'll pull out this meter. So it's going to be on DC volts. And there we go, you can see it there. I just got to be able to find the edges of, there we go. 2.5, not 8.9. Now if I get it closer, 2.6. At the max, which is like perfect, dead center, right angle, right in the center of one of those two squares, you know, because this is like a figure 8, I got 2.7. So, yeah. The probability of you having it direct center is slim, but these LEDs will run as low as 2.3, 2.4, and they'll run as high as 2.7. This one right here will run up to 3. Just so you can see, it's orange. It looks reddish on the viewfinder, but it's actually a deep orange. I was looking at this because I was doing maternal lights again. This is like almost an epileptic portion of this video. Mounting it here in the column, and you can see how much brighter it is. I mean, look at that. And that's at 2.6 volts. I can make it brighter. I could put a little resistor in it and make it dimmer, but look at how the much light is producing. Now, in the viewfinder, it's got a reddish hue, at least in my viewfinder. I don't know what it's going to look like on your monitor. In person, this is orange, and it's not near as bright as the camera's making it, because the camera's adjusting for the low light, so it is amplifying the brightness of the LED. It doesn't look like it's swamping it out like it does on the camera in person. But this gives it a nice orange hue, and it's reminiscent of the orange, or the driving, when you drive at night, you had the lights over the freeway or the road. They were that orange color before they became LED, when they were the incandescent versions. I forgot the name of the chemical that makes up the lamp. That's what it looks like right here, like the lights from the freeway or your side roads prior to the LED conversions they're doing now. I don't mind it. It looks good. I don't know if I want to go with orange though. Now, in these square LEDs, I have them in colors of orange, blue, red, and white. Now, the reason I was picking the square as a test was the columns are square. So I could make a notch in it and just recess this in, make a square notch. Whereas one of these, I could drill a round hole. What I'm going to have to do is drill from the bottom up and possibly run wires underneath. Now, you might have a problem with how it sits. I'm going to turn the lights back on so we can see again. Easy way to fix that is once you run all the wires and these pads, because I'm going to mount these pads under to feed the wires that are going to be in these columns. If you run your wires neatly and flush, so they're parallel to each other, so they run in nice tracks and they're not overcrossing and making height, you can take some black foam, stick it to the bottom, and then cut out where the wires go. It'll give you this much more height, but everything will be tucked in. It'll still appear wireless, and heck, if you wanted to, once you use the first layer of foam to give you the height to clear the wires, you can put another layer of foam over the entire bottom like they do with the houses. That seals the entire thing. And this is just options, nothing you have to do. This is just showing you what I'm going to do to mine to make it look better for me. I also did weather these. It's not maybe as professional as other people, but I like the way it came out. They're not as shiny. So you can see. I did all the stones and mausoleum. So it kind of gave it that green, mossy, wet look. I just used a mixture of green and black and came up with different textures and did dry brush. I did all the tombstones. I think this one came out one of the best because this one you couldn't tell all the texture. So I didn't do the columns and I didn't do the tree yet. I was more concerned of getting these done, and then I said I had enough paint left over in my little mixer to do the rest. I'll do the columns after I decide how I want to do the accents with the lights. So, but I wanted you to see what the next step is, and I decided to keep the Lemax 2024, and I did the same paint, distressing it or what have you, because I was thinking about maybe putting it right here on the fence as a sign, or right here on the fence between the columns. Since it has the plaque, you can see where the drill bit went through, and it kind of makes it look chipped. I'm thinking about taking a pair of snips and maybe breaking the other corners, making it look like a stone plaque that has weathered and broke, and then just gluing it to one of the fence pieces. Since it doesn't have a cemetery name, it's just, gates. But again, this is just what I'm doing to my piece to make it more personal. So I'm going to find the rest of the stuff to make this, I don't know, better. I'm going to see what I have for gargoyles. I'm going to see what I have for light heads. And then I'm going to figure out if these are hollow. I'm hoping these are hollow. I really am. I'm hoping all of them are hollow, because I plan on maybe using these for illumination of lights backwards, maybe putting a couple more gargoyles on it, and then these outer posts, the tall ones, I was thinking of putting little wrought iron style lights on it, and then having the flicker lights inside to give you that old-timey lantern look. So, but in continuation from the air bright system, these are modifiable once you take them apart. This, you can use a surface mount LED and solder it back on. You do need a rework station to do it. If you use a regular soldering iron, you risk damaging the LED. It can be done, but me doing it, I've had 50% success rate. Using a rework station where I use the heat of a heat gun to melt the solder, it's almost foolproof. Or, especially these round pucks have solder pads. Just heat this up, wipe this LED off, and then solder a real LED to it with wires. And then you can remote your wires around to different things. And that's what I'm going to do. And then as far as these here, you will have to heat these up and then smear them off, and then solder to the itty bitty pads that they have left underneath the edges of this. This discoloration that you see, that's the glue. I can use isopropyl alcohol to clean the glue off. I just didn't clean them. I wanted you to see how they're glued, so you get an idea what you're dealing with if you want to modify an air bright system yourself. Airbright doesn't recommend it. I wish they had color options. They don't. You can change the color. It's not as easy as just pulling it out and soldering a new one, unless you can find the size you want in this flush mount LED or surface mount LED. But I'm not looking for a surface mount LED. The way I want to do it is a surface mount LED would be fine right here. Yeah, I could just cut out one brick and stick it in. And I do have some surface mount LEDs. I just got to find them, see what color they are, and maybe I'll still put them in the column and then just run wires down and solder them to the pads. So I just got to find them. I found them recently and stuck them in a box. I have like 6 boxes I haven't gone through for the new laboratory. So I might go through them and see if I can find what colors they were. But if not, I'm looking at something like this. And I like the orange. The purple, or UV, it illuminates, but it's not as much of a flood. These square LEDs are a nice floodlight, while these pointed LEDs are more pin lights. You can crack them, where you crack the tops and make them kind of a flood. They're not as good. You can buy straw hat LEDs. And they're more of a flood, but I know it's a flicker. But if you notice that the light isn't as intense and you can't get as much, you don't get as much of the detail in the stones. Now on the camera it looks perfect. In real life, or by your own eyes, I can't really see the texture very well unless I point the center of the beam. You can see the circle it makes. That's why I said they're more of a spot. That's why when they're used on houses, they always point them at the character talking like that, so they illuminate, or they point them at the sign when they're in the houses, either on the top or the bottom. They're used more as spotlights. LEDs are basically just miniature spotlights. Unless you get different styles like that, or like this. this is more of a floodlight style too. So it's a lot of technical stuff. I know it's probably somewhat boring, but I want you to try and understand what I'm doing. So if you want to attempt it yourself and modify your own cemetery or anything else, this is what I do. I didn't find a good use for the air bright system because of the dead spots, but on something like this, I think it will work great. And if you bought multiple of these, because I've heard of people trying to do that and making cemetery after cemetery, kind of like a family plot, so it's all cordoned off from the neighboring plots, as an example. You could stack those plates side by side by side, since it comes with 3, and literally do this to all of them. It's a lot of work. Yeah, you know, it is what it is. Those white plastic plates that the air bright is, you could paint them. Or, since Lemax sells this stuff in a mat, just spray adhesive it on. You can see that even, you know, if I lift it, it's all falling down. See, the lights are still on. Now the lights are out. Almost and gone. So I'm a good 5 inches above the mat. So you're doing pretty good on it. But anyhow, yeah, see, I really like the way the texture shows with the aging of the stone, because these are really textured, but there's just such a color gray you can't tell. But, so the next step is I got to find everything and drill some holes. When I find everything, we'll drill a hole in one of these and see if it's actually hollow or not, and then go from there. I'm hoping that they are hollow. I mean, this is supposed to be hollow, but I mean, there's big clumps of crap in there, and I had to do some grinding to get so the windows would show the light. So we'll see if these are hollow or not. If they're not hollow, these, like I said, I want to put the lantern style lights on. I'll just drill straight through, and the light will come in, and that'll tell me that these aren't hollow, and I'll drill from the bottom up, and then drill from the front or back in to where the 2 holes meet, so I can fish the wires down inside. And I'll show you the process. At least on one, because watching me do it multiple times gets, 1, a long video, and 2, it is boring. So, but anyhow, I wanted to show you the next step. I want to show you I did weather these to give them a little pizzazz, and that if you have the air bright system, you can modify the lights. You can change the colors, you can change the size from surface mount to standard, whether they're 5mm or 3mm, to the I think these are 7.5 or 8mm squares, and mil is millimeters. You can even get the big ones. I have some 10 and 12mm rounds, which are fat, huge LEDs. I think even have a couple of 20mm, and they're just monsters. They're about that big around. Those are really specialty LEDs. They're usually used for switch panels, but they still work because LED, no matter the diameter, generally uses the same power. Most LEDs are around 2.5 volts max. Usually they're 2 to 2.2. Because this is low amperage at 2.7, they're not burning the LEDs out. I actually tested it with a green LED, which had a 1.8 to 2.0 volt forward voltage. I had it hooked up. Green LED didn't burn out. I had it on this guy for a couple of minutes. It never got dimmer. It didn't do anything. So the amperage is really low, even though it's technically a hair overpowered. So, but there we go. So bear with me while I regroup, get the stuff ready, and we're going to start the next step of this process, and I'll be back. Okay, I started the columns. I have 2 completely done, 1 partially done, and 1 not done at all, so I can walk you through the process and how I'm doing this. These columns are semi-hollow. So where the fences go inside the column, they're actually hollow. These fences actually are recessed in each one of these columns. The top portion is solid, and they're really easy to shatter. I know, I did it. So, but I glued them back together. So you can't really tell anymore that 2 of these split, which is fine. That's what they make glue for, screwing up. But these are the style lights I'm going to use. This one. I've already got the top preset to pull off, so you can put the light in. You get like I think it's like a 12 pack of these for like $2.50 on Temu. They're hollow. I've mentioned them before in other videos. There you go. So you can actually put a light in here and put them anywhere in your village. Just run some thin wire through it. This wire is from Ethernet cable or telephone wire cable. It's just a very thin strand wire. I got the LED, some insulation, and another double to do the two fronts, because this is the back. So I'm going to turn off these lights to make it a little darker in here, so you can see. If it focuses. But there you go. I got flicker lights in there to make it kind of look like the old-fashioned fire lanterns. And I can lift it, because again it uses that pad, so I can rotate it. There you go. So it is possible using the air bright system. So the air bright system can actually be used for something decent. That sounded horrible, but I've heard a lot of complaints about it. To do something like this, to turn this into a vignette that you can use, or even put it in your display. Again, I wouldn't strip the piece. I did this myself to show you what's inside. But this will allow me to do contours when I put it in my display, since this is not near as big as it. So let's show you how to do this one here that's not done. It's a process. It's going to take a little bit of time. If you go too fast, you will shatter the column. So first I'm going to do is remove the air bright figure 8. So use a light of your choice if you want to do this. I'm going to use this lighter for the heat shrink, flicker LED, and this to solder this to, and this wire to. So first thing I do is I usually just pop the top off this, and so I don't lose the center, because they're usually not glued in. This one, they just come right out, and get it out of my way so I don't lose it when I do this. Next thing I do is I take a Dremel. This might be loud on earphones, and we're going to cut the head off. Of course, engage your safety squints if you got them. And just take, because it's plastic and it gets hot, I just take a razor knife and get rid of the pieces of plastic shrapnel or plastic parts. I do leave a little step here for glue to bond onto, because I did super glue these in. And also drill bits around. This is octagonal. You can probably see it better on this. You can see the flat sides. So while I have it, I remove the points to kind of make this more round. It'll fit better since I don't have an octagonal drill bit. I don't know if they even make one, but there we go. You can use sandpaper too. And just find a sharp razor knife works perfect. For prepping this, like I was saying on the earlier half of this video, you just peel it slowly. So I do one side up to the components, and I will peel the other side. Like so. If yours for some reason is super adhered, use a heat gun. But there's our pad that we're going to use. So I'll set that back out of the way with this, because let's start with the messy part. This is going to make a massive mess. You're going to need a pilot bit, and this is the size hole, as you can tell by the white, that I've made these 3. This it is, if I can still read it, 3/16. This pilot bit probably doesn't say anything, yeah, because it would be printed on the case. But if you've ever drilled wood or any material that's deep, you gotta clean the flutes. If you don't clean the flutes, you risk cracking the column. Ask me how I know. So, now remember, the top, 3/4 of an inch or so, is solid. Then once you get to the height where this fence goes through, it's hollow. So if you're forcing too hard, you will crack it in half. Now if this cracks in half, I got super glue sitting right over there to fix it. Of these three, one blew the side out, one split in half, and the other one was perfect. So hopefully this one's perfect too, but mistakes happen, and that's why they invented this miracle thing called glue. So I just kind of eyeball the center, and we're going to try and drill straight down. Try is the key word here. So what I'm doing is I'm going down about 1/4 inch and then lifting up to get the drilled pieces out. You're basically removing the chips. The deeper you go, the more you have to do it because it'll start to bog down. I don't use a super fast pace. This isn't at full bore, but I go all the way down to where the collet or the jaws hit the top of this. Which is just before it penetrates the bottom. I don't penetrate the bottom of it until I use the longer, bigger, fatter drill bit. All this is doing is giving me a pilot hole and giving this thing a reference on what to follow. So you probably saw a poof of dust come out. That's where I hit the hollow section. So it was bogging down, and then it hit the hollow section, and the buildup of the chip blew out where the fence goes in. That's what I mean, it's hollow. And that's where you can shatter it. You'll actually blow this piece right off if you have too much buildup. And that's it. That's as far down as I'm going to take it. So get this out. Now it's going to be hot, so don't grab it by the fluted part. Now I marked this drill bit to know the depth. So this depth will go all the way through the column and out this bottom plastic. So I'm going to drill most of the way down, and then I'm going to elevate the plastic. I'm going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to be going in, pulling out, going in, pulling out to clear all the flute debris. When I did this one, I didn't clean it as much and it blew the center out. This one split when I tried to use a second size drill bit to make it bigger so I didn't have to shave down the flats. It was just easier to shave down the flats because it split the column in half. So, and also, if you're going to do something like this, get brand new drill bits. This was a brand new drill bit. This one wasn't brand new. I used it for pilot holes on sheetrock when I did my craft room, but it's still sharp. You don't want a dull drill bit. You will shatter the resin. So if you're going to do something like this, go spend the $8 or $10 and get yourself a brand new, it doesn't have to be expensive drill bit kit. This kit that came with 4 different sizes and 5 or 6 of each of these drill bits, it came from Temu for like $5. And if you couldn't tell, I buy a lot of stuff from Temu to test it out. And for drilling through plastic and resin houses, works great. It's better than going to the hardware store and paying $8 for one bit. So Here we go. Almost to the bottom. And that's close to the bottom, so now I just use something elevated. I just happen to be using this little Sharpie just to elevate the corner. And the reason I'm grabbing the column is it's starting to vibrate, and you don't want it to vibrate and shatter. So if you squeeze the column and keep this at a low speed, if it breaks, it won't grab your hand and cut you. If you use gloves though, you might grab the gloves, but trigger control and watching how the material's reacting. So all the way through, there's the black plastic from the bottom, and now we're good. So when I say this is the messy part, that's because there's your mess. If it was the 1980s, you might use a credit card, but I'm going to use a vac to clean it up. So I'm not going to use my little desk vac because it obliterates it in the powder and it goes and shoots it everywhere. So I'm just going to use a quick little vacuum here to suck up the stuff. Also, there we go. So now I have a hole to run the wires through. So first I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that this is shaved enough to fit in the hole. It's not, so I need to shave a little bit more off of the points. I did consider making this a multi-parter, but multi-parters, sometimes it's hard to remember where you stopped watching or where I stopped filming. So it's just going to be a long video that you can skip around and if necessary. And I got a burr, so I'm going to clean that up real fast. It should be decent, almost. Now, like I said, on one of them, this one, I tried using a bigger drill bit to make the hole bigger, and it just split the whole top stone, or faux stone. So you just got to be really careful. All I was doing was trying to drill down just a little bit so this fits better. and it ended up just splitting the top. Luckily, it splits pretty clean. It's not like it turns it into pulverized dust, so it is something that you can easily repair. There we go. But you can also just shave it. Apparently when I shaved it, I left a little piece hanging. There we go. Just clean it up a little bit. So because I'm shaving it up, it's curling towards the top. So when I pushed it down, I saw it look like little rose petals. So you know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to clean up those little pieces I shaved. So now it'll stay in, so it doesn't fall out. There we go. Alright, so this is an orange flicker LED, and if you know anything about LEDs, you know that there's a positive and negative, and if you don't, there's a positive and a negative. The longer lead is the positive, and the shorter lead is the negative. So what I did on those, because they're all different colors, you see green and orange, and this one's brown, this one's blue, it's because I used a Cat 5 Ethernet cable and stripped off a big section for a different project, and I still had some of this left over. I've been using the solid color for the positive and the striped color for the negative. So it kind of looks blue and white. It's actually blue and blue with a white with a blue stripe. And that's so you know the bundles of wire when you're hooking up data cable. So, and then we're just going to strip off a little of the insulation. And we're going to pre-tin these. And just so you know, for me to do these other three, I think it probably took me a good hour. Because of course I had to fix my screw-ups where I broke the columns. So I learned, so now I know for the future. And it didn't completely shatter them to where it was not, you know, unrepairable. So it's kind of nice I was able to fix it. But even if I couldn't, if I made this look like an old weathered cemetery, I'm sure some of the columns might be broken. If it's an old, dilapidated, abandoned cemetery. So even if you break it, this is what Bob Ross would say, happy little accidents. Sometimes it can add a little character to your display. Of course, the goal is to not break it if that's your intent, but sometimes things are out of your control, and you just hopefully deal with it. Not just have to want to go buy a new one. Try and fix what you got. Out of all the stuff that Lemax released this year, I actually think this is one of the best pieces. I think it should have been weathered from Lemax directly, but you know, they left it shiny. But that also gives you your ability to use your own artistic vision and then change how they look. There you go. So, heat shrink. I put the heat shrink on the positive. You can heat shrink both if you want, but because these are 5mm LEDs, it makes for a really tight fit. So, and if you look inside your Lemax buildings, 90% of the time, heck, on the older ones, I never even use heat shrink, they just use glue, but on the ones that do use heat shrink, they only ever heat shrink the positives. So now we're going to pull this through. There we go. The clear plastic, the hole, I noticed on these Chinese ones, they're not centered with the black plastic, so you sometimes have to help feed them due to the fact that their alignment's off by a hair. But it's fine. So before I can't pull the wire back up, I'm going to put a little dab of super glue. Now, just so you know, before I started the video, I tested the lights to make sure they all worked, because you will occasionally get a bad LED in a batch of lights, and if that's the case, that would suck if you had put this all together and then you found out you had a a broken lantern light. So I always recommend testing your LEDs in advance. You can make your own LED tester, or you can use one of those lithium batteries, the little flat pucks that are 3 volt, and squeeze the positive and negative leads on it to test your LEDs. If you have a power supply, you can set it for 2 volts on average and test your LEDs. But I recommend you always test them before you use them, because there's been a few projects that I've actually, you might have seen if you watched all the videos, where I didn't test the LEDs and I had 1 or 2 that were burned out. So it happens. That's generally why when you buy LED bags, they come in 100, 500, 1000 quantity. They're mass produced, and just like light bulbs, the internals can break before they're cast in their plastic cap. And unless you test them, you don't know. So, all right, so lights in. This light's in. I just haven't glued the caps on. So same as before, I'm going to pre-tin these. Like this. Go. Stop moving on me. There we go. Just like that. And now I'm going to move this out of the way, because now we need this. Now, if you're trying to salvage these lights, you're going to have to use a lot of hot air. That heat pen that you see me using quite often is a rework station that's designed to remove surface mount components. The problem is, if you get this hot enough, you can actually remove these surface mount components, and you need these surface mount components to convert the big pad into small energy. This is the other coil, and these are the components that let the coil do its job. So the other way to do it is use a soldering iron. It's nice and toasty. You just clean the tip off, and we have a nice clean point. And you heat up the edge, and then try not to burn yourself. Try and heat up the edge a little. And you usually get the LEDs to flick off. I might have to put a little solder back on it. I think I cleaned too much off. The solder not only solders, but it also allows heat transfer. So if there's not enough heat transfer, you can't get the component to separate. There we go. So it broke off, which is fine. Like I said, I'm not a white light fan for these little displays anyway. So the LED broke. That's, like I said, totally fine with me. That one's actually stuck to the tip. All I'm doing is putting it up against the edge where the solder point is and putting pressure, and then as soon as the solder breaks, it flicks. There we go. And put some fresh solder on the pads. Now there's 2 pads. Sorry, I put my finger on the hot solder. There's 2 pads on here. There's a fat pad and a thin pad. And they're really close to each other because, you know, it's a really small light. Oops. So there's a fat pad and a thin pad. The fat pad is negative. The thin pad is positive. So if you can tell, a little pointy thing here. You got a fatter pad on the left and a thinner pad on the right. Same here. The fatter pad is negative. So since we know that the white wire is negative and the blue solid color wire is positive, we know where to solder them. The only thing I didn't do is on that I trimmed it, so I'm going to trim these and then re-solder them. I don't need them this long. I usually just set them past center, so that's about center because they're going to be underneath. So I don't want the wire so long that I can glue these onto the bottom and then put a foam pad on top. If the wires are super long, that's a lot more wire I have to manage and move around. So I'm just going to trim them down and repeat this process again because I forgot they were still long. And the reason I didn't solder one side on already was to allow you to see how I do this, or how I did it, and that way you can watch in real time. And if you solder one side on, because this is double pad, you can throw off the component. It's not balanced. You can throw it off of the balancing. I found it out when one of those didn't work because the solder didn't connect right, and it was having problems, and it was flashing the red light on the circuit board on the big piece because it wasn't balanced. So that's why I didn't do that. Plus I wanted you to see me peel it apart so you can see what's inside and how you take the big ones apart, which are a lot easier than taking the little ones apart. Remember, big pad, negative, little pad, positive. So just remember that when you're doing it, and however you designated your wires is yours. So let that cool. Let it cool so I can move the other wire, and also let it cool so this pad doesn't transfer heat into the components. Yeah, so you don't want to apply a lot of heat. Once it starts to melt the solder, just pull it off, because you don't want it running back the thin tracks to these little components and damaging those. All electrical things are susceptible to heat, varying amounts, and of course these smaller houses and the smaller components are more susceptible to heat, especially since I have my soldering iron set at 250 degrees Celsius. She is toasty, but that allows for an almost instant touch and instant melt to allow the adhesion. And now we test it. That's the other reason I didn't glue these on, is so you can see it light up from above. So here we go. It's either going to work or it's not, or it's going to be 50-50. Here we go. So that is how I did those two. Those two aren't lit because they're too far away from the coil. But now we have lit columns. Now as far as these go, these little surface mount LEDs, because this one didn't break, which is, well no, this is broken. Nope, this one didn't break. These little surface mount LEDs, I can't find my little roll of them, and because it's a little roll, there's 100 LEDs on it, and it's rolled up the size of a quarter because they're so small. Because I was thinking about putting one on the brick, and then I realized I'm just going to use a full-size LED because if it fails, it's easier to replace. So I am going to use, and I'm probably going to stick with the orange flicker theme to illuminate the two off of these columns. Only because if I did a red or a blue or a purple, the 4 column lights are going to be flicker orange, so I might as well just do the flicker orange going in, and that way, or solid orange, but an orange going in, so it kind of makes it look like these are most of your illumination and not an additional set of lights. So that's my thought, that's what I'm going to go with, and that's what I'm going to do. Because the red looks good too. I went and got a red LED and put it in. I got a blue, I got the purples, and I decided that the orange is bright enough to see everything, but still dark enough to not make it overbearing. And I know the camera picks it up differently, but in visual form, it's perfect. So the only last thing you have to do once you do this, to finish this part of the project, I'm not talking about gluing the boards on the bottom, is a little dab of super glue to glue the caps back on. So I don't put a lot on there. I put a very thin bead on one side, a very thin bead on the opposite side, and then I line the cap up and stick it on. The reason I say I line the cap up is the cap actually has a small tab that fits on the inside so that they can center it when they put it on at the factory. They actually glue all 6 sides. I only glue 2, just in case I ever have to pull it apart. I can easily crack that with a little bit of heat or a tool and not have to worry about breaking it. And if I do break it, like I said, it's like a 12-pack for $2 on Temu. I bought, I think, 60 or 72 of them, because I bought 5 or 6 12-packs. So technically, if I do this, they should all light up. Let's see what it kind of looks like in the dark. So it's mostly dark. I have a big night light behind me that's on. But let's see if I can slide this on camera. There we go. So you can see the light it produces. If you look at my hand, you can see the flickering is from this one here. So it actually does produce a nice glow in here, and I'm sure the glow might even be nice enough on the tombstones, but it's not going to be bright enough because once I put the flicker LED inside of the mausoleum, that's going to distract from it. I mean, I'm not going to just have this white light sitting here and then put this back on top because it's overpowering. So I am going to convert one of these to an orange, and this is going to be a lot easier, and I'll show that to you. So here you go. We have 4 orange candelabras. Lights are coming back. There we go. Let's turn off my soldering iron so it prolongs its life. So tool-wise, to do this part, you need a soldering iron with solder, a lighter, some heat shrink, which is a material, less the tool, some sort of cutting device, whether it's a hacksaw, you can cut through with a razor knife, it's just plastic, or a X-Acto knife. But I had the Dremel out because I had the Dremel for honing out the windows. So I just use that because it's here and it's fast. But I still haven't located my gargoyles. That's why I haven't done these columns yet. I'm going to do similar. I'm going to drill straight through with a smaller hole, smaller than this, probably one size smaller, and then use this size to drill in this way where that it meets the hole. So imagine this is the hole through the center. I'm going to drill in to make a hole like this so I can put the light in and feed the wires down, and then put a gargoyle on top. You could drill from the bottom up and guess, but then you're guessing if you're in the center, you're guessing your depth. Just drill from the top, put a gargoyle or something on top, and call it good. It'll save you a lot of hassle, and it'll save you the time if you accidentally break this. So that's where we're going to stop for now. I'm now going to find gargoyles, get that set, and then we'll get this set. And like I said, this will be easier because if you notice, there's solder pads on either side of the light. So all I need to do is flick the light off, which if you don't want to flick the light off, especially on these, let's just do this right now. You can actually literally just cut the light off. You might have to go find it if you're, or your vacuum will find it. But now we just need to, what it is, that was the top. This piece right here that I'm trying to peel up is the part that's soldered on. It's a flat piece of metal is what it looks like to your human eye, but if you magnify it, it's actually got textures and stuff because that's what made the light. But we need to break the center of it so it's not contact. There we go. So now it's separated. So you can solder to these pads or where the light was. And let's turn that back on. We're just going to do it right now and test it. So get another LED. There we go. Move that out of the way. Now you have some choices here. How high do you want the light? Do you want the light higher in the unit, lower in the unit? You can see how long that is. Again, because they're spotlights, they're not flood. So you might have to play around with it. I'm going to go up just a little bit. I'm probably going to raise it 1/4 inch. What I just put on here was flux. That way I have clean solder pads, so that way I can get the solder on here real quick and it will just easily make a little bead for me. Now I have 2 little beads. Now, the reason I'm bending them over is so I have more surface area to solder and a more stable platform. If you just solder the points in, you have a very narrow solder joint. If you've ever done welding, you'll know that's not good because it's an extremely weak bond. And this is basically welding. Other countries actually call this welding. They refer to solder as welding, since you are technically using a material to put 2 metals together. So I'm just going to spread the legs apart a little bit so that way they actually meet with the solder pads. I'm not going to pre-tin the LED because it'll bond really fast with that large bend. There you go. So it's a lot quicker, as you can see right there. And we'll put the mausoleum on it. Oh, that looks good. We're going to kill the lights again so you can see it. You can already see the glow. Looks beautiful. So I'm going to tip the mausoleum sideways and I'm going to hold the puck. Look at that. Yeah. Now if you don't want it to flicker, don't use a flicker. But that's beautiful. So that's where it's going to sit. So you can see how bright it, and of course if I tip it, it gets a little brighter because now it's getting better connection. But look at that. That is beautiful. And it's got just a thin enough amount of paint on the top that it does kind of backlight the skull. That's what you see right here where my thumb is. So if you watch my other videos, there are certain spots on here you cannot put things, and that's because they're called dead zones due to the design. But that is great. That is beautiful. I might actually, move the mausoleum to the center just to help break up the lights. I could have put a yellow in here, and I might change it to a yellow just to give it a little bit different hue, because I do have yellow flickers too. You have choices. So there is a way to modify the air bright. If you don't want to spend the money and modify it, I understand. Maybe Airbright will see the video and see that they can change things. Because I did talk about at a local villaging meeting, I should have warned you the lights are coming back, about taking one of these and running a wire up and then making this puck power it. So you would remove the casing of the LED, solder the wires, have this puck glued on to this and make this a mobile lamp post that you can move around your village. All you got to do is paint this and glue this on with some hot glue that way, or you can use super glue if you want. And now you have a lamp post that you could use on the air bright pads and it would light up. So doing this, you can see there's options. It's whether or not you feel confident enough to take apart your air bright pucks or pads, the long ones, and do this. I haven't broke any yet. I still have the same quantity I started with. And I think it's coming out great. I know this will be a really long video, but hopefully it helps you learn something. And now, the next part is trying to make these guys light up. What I'm probably going to do before I do that is I'm going to actually set this up the way I like it or want it and see how it looks. And if these are enough illumination, I won't. I have a funny feeling they're not going to be. So I most likely still am going to make this thing light up on the inside. And there's another option that popped into my head, is a fairy light string. You get one of those 3 to 4 volt fairy light strings that run on some AA's or AAA's. Take one of these pucks, solder the string to the puck, and then just have it run at the fence line. I don't know how that would look, if it'd be too much light, too little light, too cheesy, but that way the front illuminates back. That's all I'm trying to do, is just illuminate back, because my village is dark. It's a Halloween village. There's no external lighting in the room, and the only thing that gives you light are all these houses. So this would be very dark. I would have to put the LED spotlights that Lemax sells, or even the ones that Department 56 sells to illuminate this, and I don't want to do that. I actually think this looks good if it can make it light up, especially using the air bright. So, but anyhow, also one advantage for me is with this thing removed, this will fit on my display. With the big white piece around it, it's bigger than my display sections. My sections are only 13 inches. So they're too large. But with this thing being trimmed down to its base piece, it's a little over 13, but it's flexible, so I can make it form. What is this thing? So it's about 18 inches. Like I said, I might actually just cut off the other half and just use this powered half here. That's about it. But we'll see. I haven't decided where I'm going to put this in my village yet. So, but I probably am going to change this to a yellow, just because I want a different hue. But anyhow, I'll return once we figure out. I'll probably get one column done, and once I figure out the trick, we'll do the other column. We'll look for my gargoyles, and then we'll get these pads glued onto the bottom. Give it a little piece of styrofoam or foam rubber, this stuff, and it should be done. And we'll take a nice low light video of it, so you can see if it's something that you're willing to tackle, turning the non-lit cemetery into a lit cemetery with no external wires. So, all right, shall return. Okay, I'm back. I decided to change it up a little, so I'm going to turn down the lights here. Instead of having the lights come off the columns, I decided in the corners would be better, as far as it kind of gives you the effect that these are shining inwards. And I did glue in the bottom of the mausoleum. You can see the shadow. Instead of, I took the orange flicker out and made it a yellow flicker, so it's a different color tone. It's hard to see on the camera, and I'm going to film around this without this camera. I'm going to do it with a better handheld, so you can see how it looks, because in the picture you just see massive hot spots right here and then nothing back here on your, at least on my viewfinder, which isn't true. But putting the lights in the corner, I can even adjust it a little bit so it's a little higher. You can cover the top of the light with some of this moss, so to me it looked better. I was playing with it. I had the lights here, and I'm like, well, these columns are going to shatter. Yeah, I got some gargoyles out. I'm like, there's already gargoyles right here. Right here. I didn't realize it was too low. And I'm like, okay, I could glue some non-lit pumpkins here. I got some miniature crows, maybe put a crow on top of here. But I don't know if I want to decorate the columns too much, because when you start looking at old cemetery pictures, they're not very ornate on the outside. So I decided to change it up just to less clutter, more realism. So, but that is that. So all I did was drill a really small hole. There you go. That was the pilot drill bit I used for drilling the columns, and fed the wires through the bottom. So we're going to flip it over. And to make them dimmer, because if you remember, I mentioned the orange lights were really bright. I put 2 on one small pad versus splitting the big pad, and it dimmed the lights down because it's not designed for 2 lights, it's designed for 1, so it can't pump as much light, so it splits it. So it dimmed them down. I didn't need a resistor. And then I just cut up a foam pad that's the same height, so that way I can put a full foam pad on top of this and I don't have as many lumps. So these I get from Michael's, and I think they're like $1 each. Anyhow, I already traced out what I need to cut to stick this to the bottom, but I'm going to cover this whole thing with foam, which I mentioned as well, just because I know it's going to be lumpy with the air bright stuff. So, everybody can do it their own way. This was just options for those who have the air bright that want to change it, because there's been a lot of complaints about the air bright with the dead spots, hence the reason mine looks like a copper figure 8. And also, if you have these non-lit pieces, this might give you an option on how to make it lit, and you can modify it to your own liking. Now, I wish I was as good as some of the people out there that do the foam carving, such as Carl from Halloween Villages by Carl, but I'm not, and I know it. And I have carved foam, and I will be carving foam for my display and a few other things, but I know my limitations. But when it comes to pre-made stuff, I can modify existing things rather easy. As far as maybe not the process, but the imagination part, I have some of the skill to do it. So I even entered a foam carving competition in November for villaging, so we'll see how good I do. I'm not planning to take anything above last, but if you watch Carl's channel, you're probably inspired, and so I'm going to try it. So there we go. And the lights are on, all 6. So I'm going to put the pieces back in here and get a better filming. I am going to still weather this tree. I haven't done it yet, but in the meantime, I'm just going to reassemble this, film with a better camera and low or no light, so you can get an idea how it looks, and hopefully it'll help you with your piece if you want to modify it. Maybe not modify it the same way as mine, but maybe just modify it in the sense of it gives you an idea, a starting point. You don't have to go as extreme. And even though this video is, close to 2 hours, I'm probably in this thing close to 10, because I was doing a lot of the testing off camera, drilling them, shattering the columns, fixing the columns, gluing them back together using tweezers or needle nose pliers and glue, and letting them cure. There's a lot of time, but anyone who's out there who's made displays understands that it's not fast. So, but anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and pause this, and we're going to switch it to a different camera, and that way you get a panoramic surround eye level view and not just a aerial view like a satellite photo. because I can't tip this with all that on there unless I glue it down, and I don't ever plan on gluing that down. So if you do something like this, and I'm going to probably do it when I actually put it in my display, is I'm going to take some of this fine moss or faux grass stuff that you can buy, or what I normally do is I take the Lemax Max and I grind them up. I find it's easier. That way it matches. And I'm going to sprinkle some on top of the light so you can't see the top. So that's the only thing I'm going to do later on down the road off camera, is I'm just going to cover the top edges of the lights with some of this stuff. And I lost some of it around the edges from maneuvering this a lot, so I have some the black plastic showing right here. So I'm just going to do the mist that Carl shows with the water and glue and just sprinkle some more of it back on. And that's it. So, all right, be back in just a moment. All right, here we are at eye level, and I have no lights on in this room other than the lights coming off of this, and you can see how bright it is. It's a little brighter on camera because the camera always increases the intensity, but everything is well visible to the naked eye with just those lights in the corner, and you get the really cool shadows off the tall stones that go straight back. I mean, look at that beautiful shadow. And the shadow on the mausoleum, and then when we come this way, you can see the shadows on the large stone right here. So you got really, and if we go up, you can see the shadow X kind of designs because they're angled. I mean, look, it looks white on the camera. It's actually the golden color. Like I said, the camera still compensate for low light, and then you can see how the mausoleum, it looks almost white, but much brighter than the candles, the candelabra style lights, and that's because it's yellow versus orange. So you can see how much light this produces, and it kind of gives you a better, I think it gives a better ambiance to the cemetery with the lights not being behind these pillars over here and more in these corners. That's why I was playing with it before I made a final decision. I know you really can't see the gargoyles because they're backlit. I mean, there will be ambient light when it's in the display, which will help with some of that. You also can't see the Lemax sign that's right here. But we'll turn on the camera light. Ooh, adjust. There we go. So you can see the stone, it's glued in. You can see I got apparently a flickering piece of hot glue. Kind of like a spider web there. And that's from me gluing in these lights right here. So you can see with the white light on, you can actually see those are orange, and that has the yellow hue. Back to the orange, and then you can see the orange here, which is a slightly different hue than these oranges up here. These are kind of a reddish orange, and these are orange, and that's yellow. But the glass kind of gives it a light orange appearance because it's frosted from the sanding. So let's turn this back off. There we go. Looks so much better like this. So hopefully this helps you with any ideas you might have on yours. This gives you an idea to use the Air Bright for something. The Air Bright I recommend for vignettes or single displays, not necessarily for full displays, because it has a lot of dead spots due to its design, which is going to be inevitable with that kind of a setup. I wasn't a big fan of it. That's why I tore mine apart. But I now have a use for it. And if you have one, you can't figure out what to use it for, here's an option. This could be used as a standalone display in the middle of your table, as an example, or integrate it into your village. And if you want to light it wirelessly, so you don't have wires, you could use the Air Bright. But again, the Air Bright has a wire coming off of it. It plugs into a wall socket adapter. So technically you still have a wire, but there's no wires going to your actual cemetery or any other non-lit piece you want to light up. And because you can put 3 of these mats together, you could make a much larger display. But remember, there's dead zones, and there's not much you can do about that. Again, it's just nature of the beast. So hopefully this was assist you in some of your designs out there. I know it's a longer video, but there's a lot of detail, a lot of stuff. I will link below where you can get basic LEDs. These lanterns, like I said, I came from Temu. You can, I'll see if I can find them somewhere else, because the Temu links don't last for long. When they sell out, it's like eBay or Amazon. When that seller sells out, the link's no longer good. I'll link you to some flicker LEDs, both in yellow and orange, for Amazon as an example. And, well, y'all should know where to get this base. It's Lemax, so any Lemax dealer online and some stores in person like Michael's do carry it. If you're in the Midwest, American Sale's a big dealer. They have them. So you can find this anywhere. And then I'll link to, I think it's Glenn William for the Air Bright system. Again, yours won't look like that, where it's a figure 8. Yours will be the white mat. And if you don't like the white, you can cover it in this mulch, moss type stuff. Spray glue it on, or paint it black. It's just plastic. You're not going to hurt it. As long as the paint's not metallic, you'll be fine. And that means you can't paint it like silver or gold or brass, because that has metal flake in it generally, or metal flake paint, because it will screw up the magnetism. And you'll get that flashing red light that you see over here. So if I fold this, or however, that red light right there, that's where the magnetism gets screwed up. So other than that, thanks for watching. Until the next video, which probably be a repair versus a modification video, we'll see you then.